Oh hey Tim, what's up?
Oh Jesus, what the fuck?
Another guide.
Dude, what the fuck is wrong with you?
No, Tim, look what you make. Oh no. There he goes.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the Feral Guide for 3.3.5. Feral is one of the hardest classes to play, and that also makes it one of the most interesting classes to dominate. Not the hardest, of course, that honor goes to the dreaded Enhancement Shaman. However, today we are gonna cover Feral DPS, and there is quite a lot to talk about for sure. Keep in mind that this guide is reflecting my experience and knowledge, which is not as vast as I'd like it to be. Feral DPS really did intrigue me though, and I learned later in the process of making this guide that all of my gut feelings were correct, so maybe I'm naturally attuned to cats. So without any further ado, let's dive right in. The beginning is where we will begin. A fresh AT character without any gear or skill can still have a correct talent tree. In the case of a feral cat talent tree, we'll start with the restoration subspec. In this part of our talent tree there is no room at all for any leeway. You'll want to have an exact copy of this setup right here. It's going to include improved Mark of the Wild, a few points into Furor so that we can progress to the next tier. Then fill up Naturalist for the physical damage and both of the Shapeshifter talents. The latter one providing us with a few percentage of critical strike rating. Make sure that you take Omen of Clarity, we'll talk about its importance in a while. For now let's move on to the feral combat part of our talent tree. My setup looks like this. I won't go over all of the talent points, but the probable eyesore here is Feral Swiftness 1 out of 2. I don't think you need more than 1 out of 2 on most fights. Sure, it's gonna help on some fights like Professor Putracite or the Ruby Sanctum if you get a combustion or a consumption. But since I'm always going to be running engineering, I'm going to have nitro boosts and also dash available to me. Having the setup like this makes it so that I can take full advantage of all of the damage talents instead of a very good movement speed increase. Improved Mangle could be taken if you consistently are not gonna have another kitten or another feral tank druid with you. It might be worth investing into this, especially on fights where you need to target swap often and fights where you cannot use Shred. So the talent tree might have slight deviations. Feel free to keep exploring new possibilities if you are skeptical. Creating an argument for a specific talent or a specific item, even if you might end up being wrong, is the best way to grow as a player. As for the glyphs, I run with Rip, Shred and Savage Roar. Berserk might seem nice at first glance, but the other three aforementioned glyphs will outperform it. The minor glyphs should consist of Unburdened Rebirth, this is crazy nice to have, it will save you some backspace. Glyph of Dash, and the third one can either be Glyph of Thorns, Wild, Aquatic Form or Challenging Roar, it's up to you really. Now that you know what to do with the talents and the glyphs, let's take a look at stats and gemming. Hit rating, expertise, yeah, you knew they were coming up. If you ain't hitting your target, you ain't dealing damage son, and that's word. I highly advise you to be Alliance because of this reason. If you want to maximize your stats and damage as a feral cat, we'll talk a bit more about the racial abilities later in the tips and tricks sections, but Draenei is good. As far as our stats on the Doom Cat are concerned, we're gonna need 8% hit rating and 7% with a Draenei. And of course 26 expertise, that goes for every single melee ever. Being slightly undercapped is not okay, but being slightly overcapped is eh. Those are the golden cap rules. Or in simpler terms, just be capped on both of them, it is essential. After we've gotten that out of the way, we can focus on armor penetration, which we're gonna need 1400 of. Once again the golden cap rule comes into play. Things like Thunder Armor and Fairy Fire get calculated differently than flat armor penetration. Since I don't have Tim available right now, we cannot do math. However, being capped with hit rating, expertise and armor pen, I'd now like to gem haste rating for some more clear casting procs from Omen of Clarity. Like I said before however, we'll talk about this extensively in the tips and tricks section. Since our best in slot gear does not provide us with much hit rating and expertise, we'll need to gem those. Having a lot of yellow and red gems makes activating socket bonuses a piece of cake on the kitten, and we should for sure take advantage of this. Socket bonus it up, baby! To activate our Relentless Earthsiege Diamond, we'll need to use a single Nightmare Stare to cover for our blue gem. This should go into our highest possible socket bonus as well. That's it for statting and jamming. Time for some macros and a few important add-ons. We don't have many macaronis on the kitten, and most important ones for a druid are always going to be combined with our utility spells. Our rebirth macro, our innervate macro. I've said it before and I'll say it again. It is so important for your raid leaders and healers to know if and when you are using a battle res or an innervate. Don't spam the macros, just press them once or twice and the raid will be twice as nice. We also have a very important shred macro. The start attack portion of this macro makes it so that we can activate our auto attack even if we are energy starved. Engineering gloves will speak for themselves. Make sure that you're using the hyperspeed accelerators, and the cancel aura part will make it so that no paladins can troll you with hand of protection or divine intervention. I also have a few macros that I like to use since Feral actually has quite a few buttons to press, and these macros open up some slots on my action bars. A nice speedy macro, a nice tanky macro, and a nice taunty macro. Some other quality of life macros could be the remove curse with mouse over and the mouse over with cyclone. Mac and cheesy is done, now let's add a nice garnish of add-ons. Raid frames. You'll need certain information and raid frames will provide this for you. If your healer is low on mana, innervate. Did your friend die because he's channeling his inner chat? Don't resurrect his ass, that is a loss in DPS. Need to know is very important too. It will show you informations that you need to know. I wouldn't be able to play Feral without these bars. They are quintessential to performing well on a cat. There are a few more add-ons that I use, but I really just added this filler arc to talk about need to know. It is just that important on a kitten. Now for the big boy talk, the big girl who is beautiful talk, and the third gender big talk, if such a thing exists. The rotation. Before anything, make sure that you know what is in your raid with you. If you have a feral tank, you can exclude Mangle from your rotation. Just make sure that he uses it nice and early by asking him nicely. You fucking bear, can you mangle faster? Oh, what the fuck is wrong with you? Once you know what your raid group looks like, make sure that you get all the buffs that you deserve. You eat that flask, glass and all? Good, now you're ready to kick some pixelated booty. DBM pull in 5, 4. Use Gift of the Wild and immediately go into cat form. DBM pull in 3, 2. Use a potion of speed as a pre-pot. DBM pull 1. Nitro boosts to close distance to the boss faster. Unless you're gonna need them for the fight, then do not use them. Start off with a Mangle. This can be replaced with a Shred if there is a Feral Druid tank. Then go for a Rake, and then another Shred. And then when you can, use Savage Roar. Then quickly use Tiger's Fury to regain some energy and use Berserk while high on energy. With Berserk still up, you're going to be spamming Shreds while you keep up Rake. And when you get to your first 5 combo points after your Savage Roar, you're going to be applying Rip. With Savage Roar, Rip and Rake up, you'll be spamming Shreds and Shreds only. Do not use Ferocious Bite while under the effect of Berserk. It will empty your Rage bar while Shred won't. After Berserk has worn off, keep Mangle, Savage Roar, Rip and Rake up in that order. If you have a moment to breathe, don't. Use Fairy Fire instead. Using this can grant you a clear casting proc, which results in additional Shred. This is basically a 30-second rotation and you'll be using Tiger's Fury to reset Rip or Savage Roar, one after another occasionally. There is a little bit of priority. If you get a clear casting proc, you'll want to make sure to use it on a Shred. If you are at 5 combo points and you are not pressured to spend combo points on Rip or Savage Roar, you can use 4 to 5 of those points on Ferocious Bite instead. Learning Feral DPS is all about knowing when to spend energy and combo points. You cannot randomly push buttons on Feral as you could on many other classes. It requires forethought and quick reaction times to clear casting. That is what makes it hard, fun and rewarding. Being able to anticipate a situation before it happens consistently will make you feel like a god amongst cats. A sphinx. Utility. Yikes. Have your boomkins and resto druids do it. Chapter 6. Tips and... Alright, let's talk about utility. Druid is Druid and Druid has Druid utility. Innervate, Combat Res, they are mucho importante. Besides the regular 2 Druid spells of the anti-apocalypse, you'll have Fairy Fire on the boss pretty much constantly. Predator Swiftness will allow you to cast the Cyclone instantly, be sure to track it in Need to Know or any similar add-on. This is especially poignant on Lady Death Whisperer 25 Heroic. Your healing is completely irrelevant in most situations. I'd say you can regrowth and rejuve someone on the Sindragosa encounter to help keep them alive, but it's going to barely heal a single person to full health. If there is low healing over time though in your raid group, you might want to consider doing it. We actually have some pretty good CC for when it is necessary. Bash comes to mind quickly, but don't forget about the interrupt on Feral Charge Bear and the Maim in cat form. Both are very useful for Velitria Dreamwalker. Roots on an A-bomb means that the A-bomb is rooted, he will not slap your healer. Cyclone on the A-bomb while VDW is getting healed to 100% equals don't do that. That's really it for utility. There's not that much to talk about here, just don't forget to use your Battle Res and Innervate and the CC whenever that's necessary, and I'm sure that you can all figure out in what situations to use this. I owe you all some tips and tricks because I have been teasing them, so I'll do those first. First of all, racial trick. Why a Night Elf obby? Why not a cool Tauren cat obby? I wanna stomp gnomes obby! Night Elves will have the Shadow Melt racial ability. It has the potential to completely reset all of your aggro. Yes, that is right. If you were on 90% threat, now you've got 0%. There are a few nuances to it. You need to be out of melee range and someone else has to actively generate threat for this to work. Once you get used to it though, you'll be fine. It is a very strong racial ability that far outweighs the Tauren racials in my opinion. Also, if you have a Night Elf, you will have access to the Draenei 1% hit rating. This is going to allow you to gem more haste, which is going to give you more DPS. Next up on the tips and the tricks is Omen of Clarity, or clear casting. We've talked about it in the restoration part, but I need to say this again. Shred on clear casting. Unless you can line up a ferocious bite with it, it is going to increase your DPS by a significant amount if you can get used to doing this. Furthermore, if you have a hole in your rotation, fill it with the Fairy Fire, it will produce quote-unquote a free clear casting for you. Keep Thorns up, if you struggle with the 10-minute timer, get the Glyph, it will slightly boost your damage in some situations, you son of a bitch, Thorns me up! You need to also understand the boss fights. Do you need to keep your mobility spells for certain situations? Then do exactly that. A good example is Faster Gut. You can nitro boosts towards him and start DPSing slightly faster than your competition. Do not start with Feral Charge. It's not worth the 10 energy cost if you can dash or nitros instead. Speaking of Feral Charge, whenever a boss like Sindragosa, Saphiron or Saviana Ragefire goes out of melee range and into the air, you can pounce on that booty and rake it. You can become quite tanky if you go into your bear form and pop some barkskin and survival instincts. Even without the bear form, you will be able to take a significant amount of damage if you use your defensive cooldowns wisely. So yeah, use them wisely. If you know that you are not going to need barkskin for any defensive reasons on the fight, you can even use barkskin in order to try to proc your clear casting. That's it for the tips and tricks that I know. If you know some that I didn't list here, feel free to put them in the comment section down below. Oh, yeah, it's a real struggle. My hair keeps getting into my eyes and it's making me lose DPS. Thanks for watching, my wonderful people. As always, let me thank my heroes and my wait, no, we scrap that. Yeah, just get rid of it entirely. Keep an eye out on the Discord. I got a notification bot so you can see when we go live and the announcements, talent trees, macros, everything you'd want to know. So one more time, thank you all for watching and I'll catch you live or in the next video. Ciao ciao.